In the first years of revelation of the Prophet ﷺ, the earliest surahs that were to be revealed to him before things intensified. So before the Quraysh became violent, before the open attacks against him began, before things were much more aggressive, to the point where you all know he had to migrate to Medina, ﷺ, along with the believers. There was an assassination attempt also against the Prophet ﷺ. Before all of that, some of the earliest revelations include Surah Al-Qadam. The ayat I've recited to you belong to Surah Al-Qadam, and this is as if Allah is preparing the Messenger ﷺ for the different kinds of enemies he's going to have in Makkah. And we have to first understand the difference between the enemy in Makkah and the enemy in Medina, even though they're Quraysh. The enemy in Medina is also going to be Quraysh on the battlefield, and the enemy in Makkah is also the Quraysh. But there's a difference between the enemy on the battlefield and the ideological enemy. The Quraysh in Makkah are the ideological enemy, first and foremost. They are trying to fight the message of Islam, the mission of the Prophet ﷺ. They're trying to fight it through propaganda. They're trying to fight it with a psychological war, with a war of ideas. That's the first war. The war on the battlefield was the second war. And 2/3 of the Quran was engaged in the first war. The Meccan Quran is engaged in the first war. And even before that war intensifies, that ideological war that was happening in Mecca intensifies, Rasulullah ﷺ was being given preparation of the kinds of attacks that are going to come. And there are two kinds of attacks in Surah Al-Qadam. And in the very next surah, in Surah Al-Haqqah, there are the rest of the attacks. So at least today, in today's khutbah, briefly I want you to know the difference between these two kinds of attacks. One kind of attack doesn't look like an attack. It actually looks like someone feels bad for you. Someone feels sorry for you. So when you've heard that the Prophet ﷺ was accused, or people said about him that he's insane, when someone is insane or they're possessed, the word majnoon means both things. Junna aqluhu aw alayhi jinn. It means that their mind doesn't work anymore, their mind is overshadowed, they've got some kind of bipolar disorder, some kind of schizophrenia, some kind of psychological issue. That's one meaning of majnoon. The other meaning in the ancient world of majnoon is there's a demon, there's a jinn that possessed this person, right? Both of those meanings they had in the ancient times. But when they say that about him, they're not saying he has bad intentions. It's not his fault. Poor man just lost his mind. Ma'adallah. That's how they're speaking about Rasulullah ﷺ. So they're dismissing Islam, but they're not actually attacking the character of the Prophet ﷺ. They're just saying he's sick. He's not well, so we should feel bad for him. So this is an attack, but it's not an attack on his character. It's just a way of dismantling or dismissing what he's going to say without actually directly attacking his character. And the opposite of that, you will find in Surah Al-Haqqah. Here, even from the beginning and at the end, Allah will tell us, مَا أَنْتَ بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ بِمَجْنُونَ or لَيُزْلِقُونَكَ بِأَبْصَارِهِمْ لَمَّا سَمِعُوا الذِّكْرَ وَيَقُولُونَ إِنَّهُ لَمَجْنُونَ. Right, so this is the accusation in Surah Al-Qalam. When you get to Surah Al-Haqqah, you're gonna find they're gonna call him a poet. They're gonna call him a mind reader. They're gonna call him all these other, and a poet is someone who's not insane. They planned. They thought about what they're going to write. They're creative. They're creating something to influence the masses. So now they're accusing the character of the Prophet ﷺ. So there's a more direct attack and there's a more indirect attack. And actually, the direct attack is easier to deal with. At least you know your enemy. They're right in front of you. They're calling you a liar. They're calling you this, that, or the other. But the indirect attack is not meant for you. If they're calling the Rasul of Allah ﷺ insane, that's not for the messenger to hear. They're trying to tell the people around him that he's insane so they don't take him seriously. Because if they come to the people close to the Prophet ﷺ and say, oh no, he's a liar, he's a poet, he's a mind reader, he has another agenda, they're going to say, we know him our whole life. He's an honest person. You're the liar. So it's not going to fly. So they have to come up with a tactic that's going to work to isolate the Prophet ﷺ. And this was the isolation tactic that they came up with. Let's spread that a jinn has took over him. But of course, those words, that accusation, if you actually take the time to listen to what the Prophet has to say, alayhi salatu wasalam, if you actually take even a minute to contemplate what the Quran is saying, immediately you will know this is not the word of a jinn. In fact, it's so powerful, even the jinn know it's not a word of a jinn. Even the jinn hear that they hear, Inna sami'na Qur'anan ajaba. So it's that accusation is going to fall apart. But before they go to the open attack, there's a second level of secret attack, internal attack. And that's what this surah is exposing. The second attack is, you may have heard of enemies of Islam like Abu Lahab, right? They hated the Prophet ﷺ, even though he's their family. They celebrated when his child died, right? They would curse, they would be vile and ugly in their attacks against him. Another kind of enemy was Abu Jahl. But Abu Jahl is he's very different than Abu Lahab. He's very different. Abu Jahl doesn't use filthy language. In fact, Abu Jahl says we should oppose Islam because that's the best thing for our country, in that time our tribe. National interest. He's a patriot. He's a true patriot. He just wants what's best for the tribe, and he thinks this new religion and this new message is a danger to the status quo, and what we have is already the best. We don't need any improvements, so we have to oppose this for national interests. In fact, he was even open and principled in his attacks to the point where our Messenger ﷺ made dua to give him one of the two, Umar or Amr, and Amr is Abu Jahl. And Allah answered that with Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Because even Rasulullah ﷺ saw some powerful qualities in the personality of Abu Jahl. Even in the way, if he's an enemy, at least he's open about it. He's not hiding around different kinds of accusations. No, I stand against Islam. Here are my reasons. We're not talking about whether his reasons are right or wrong, but at least he's honest with himself. And he's honest. What he has inside is what he's saying outside. Open about his kufr. There's an integrity in that enemy too. You know, there's an honorable enemy, if you want to call it that. But then there's another category of enemy. And by the way, just speaking of Abu Jahl, even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, in the earliest revelation again, in Surah Al-Alaq, Allah mentions, أَرَأَيْتَ إِنْ كَانَ عَلَى الْهُدَى أَوْ أَمَرَ بِالتَّقْوَى. Have you thought about if that person, وَالْإِشَارَةُ إِلَى أَبِي جَهْلٍ كَمَا ذَكَرَهُ الْمُفَسِّرُونَ. So Abu Jahl, Allah says about him, did you notice if he was committed to guidance and if that person commanded to taqwa? Meaning even Allah sees the potential in Abu Jahl. Even Allah sees that, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So clearly the messenger saw it too. But there's a third kind of enemy, and that's the most dangerous kind of enemy. So there's an Abu Lahab kind of enemy, there's an Abu Jahl kind of enemy, and these are ideological enemies, but the third kind of enemy is the most dangerous one. Well, how do we know this is the most dangerous one? This, by the way, is something like Utbah ibn Rabi'a or Walid ibn Mughira. These are different, these names are not that important for you, but their qualities are important for you to know. Why are these so dangerous? Because Allah in the earliest revelations, warned our messenger about this third category. Watch out for these people. Why? Because they will come to you as a friend. They won't come to you as an enemy. They'll come shaking your hand. They'll come tell you, we feel bad for what's going on. I actually want you to be safe. I don't want this to happen. I'm on your side here. Allah says, فَلَا تُطِعِ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Don't fall under the influence. Ita'ah is not just obedience. Ita'ah, many translations say, don't obey those, the beliers. But ita'ah in Arabic is not just obedience. Taw' in Arabic actually means to incline towards something. Al-mayl ila shay. So don't even be influenced. Don't even listen carefully. Don't even pay attention. You know, when you listen to something enough times, it starts influencing you, consciously or subconsciously. Rasulullah ﷺ is being told, these people are very influential. Don't take any influence from them. Don't take anything they say and let it sit in your mind. These are mukaththibeen through and through. Mukaththibeen means they think you're a liar. Whatever they say from their mouth is not important. What they really think is you're a liar. And they want to show the world that you're also a liar. They want to dismiss your message. Then Allah gave their qualities. And if you study the Meccan Quran, you will know that in Allah's book, the kuffar are just called the kuffar. The mushrikun are called the mushrikun. The a'da, the enemies are called the enemies. But this person, this character, Allah gave him a lot of description, unusual for the Quran. Unusual. And he gave it early in the revelation, as if even before the Prophet ﷺ meets with these people, he will already be prepared. You know, when you're going into a high-level meeting, you have to have a briefing first, right? If you're going to go into negotiations, then you have to have a briefing first. So if, for example, in the United Nations nowadays, or any other negotiation, war negotiations or something, before you're going to walk in, your team is going to give you intelligence on who's going to be on the other end of that meeting. They'll give you their background, they'll tell you their psychology, they'll tell you how to handle them in the meeting, etc., etc. If you're a serious politician or a serious bureaucrat, even a serious business person, before you walk into the negotiations, you're going to do your homework. This is the same thing lawyers do before they go to the courtroom. They even study the judge. They study their opponent. This is what teams do in sports, isn't it? They watch the replays of previous matches and identify the weaknesses of their opponent. Well, in the Quran, instead of having a secret play-by-play strategy for the Prophet ﷺ, Allah openly declared in the Quran, this is the kind of person you're about to deal with. So I'm going to walk you through in the few minutes that I have some of these qualities, and I want you to, on your own, I believe al-labibu min al-isharati yafhamu. The intelligent person can take a hand. You can understand what I'm referring to and who I'm referring to and why this is relevant for us today. All of you are intelligent enough to understand. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, فَلَا تُطِعِ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Number one, وَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ. They're really hoping that you compromise just a little bit so they can compromise a little bit. They'll say, hey, look, we know that we're getting pretty aggressive with you, but we don't want to. We don't want to do this. You're forcing us to do this. If you just work with us a little bit, if you just negotiate a little bit, then we can work something out. So their first strategy is to say, you're the one that's not compromising, which is forcing us to turn to violence against you. So the problem isn't us. In fact, the problem is you, because you're so rigid and so firm in your stance. So you're not working with us here. Work with me here. So show me a little bit. And what they said in the time of the Prophet ﷺ is, you know, can you give another surah? Like this last surah was pretty offensive. Just give us, look, this last surah, it made us feel pretty bad, especially our leaders. If you could just say some kind words about your elders in the next surah, just drop in a little bit that you also love, you know, your ancestors, or we should respect our elders, just something nice. Just throw that in, and we will, you know, I'll let these aggressive hoodlums know not to attack you in the street. You know, we can work something out here. We know you, we like you. We don't want to see you hurt like this. Right? So وَدُّوا لَوْ تُدْهِنُوا فَيُدْهِنُونَ وَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ. And don't ever come under the influence of someone who keeps on making promises on top of promises on top of promises. Halaf means someone who takes a lot of oaths. You see, if you're an honest person, then the way you do business, and the way you treat people, and the way you talk to people, and the way you act around people speaks for itself. You don't have to go convince someone, Wallahi, I'm honest. Wallahi, I'm telling the truth. No, I mean good for you. I swear. You know why you have to say that much? Because your character doesn't speak for itself. So you have to speak a lot. You have to speak very loudly. You have to make a lot of promises. You have to pound the podium a lot to make your point, to negotiate, to show how sincere you are, how much you have the other's interest at heart. Allah says, watch out for these people who talk too much, make too many promises. Halaf. And then he says, Maheen. فَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ Maheen. Mahin in Arabic is actually ad-da'f. It's actually in Arabic, amhanahu ad'afahu, to make somebody weak. Allah is saying these people that make a lot of promises, they actually don't have anything they believe. They're weak in their beliefs. So they come to you and they make these promises because right now, this is strategically the best thing for them. Tomorrow, when the strategy changes, they will drop you like yesterday's trash and make promises to somebody else. The day after, they're going to make promises to somebody else. They're not holding on to something that binds them to a character, to principles, to ideals. It's not like that. You could say, no. But these nations, you know, the Quraysh, they had a culture for several thousand years. They had tribal values. They were holding on to those values. It isn't true. They hold on to those values until those values start costing them something. Until then, they're proud of their values until they don't like those values work against them. You see, what happens with Quraysh is you will never see somebody attacked in Makkah. They have a rule. This is haraman aminan. This is a rule. The only time they're willing to break that rule is with Muslims. Anybody can come from anywhere in the region and go make tawaf to any idol, say whatever they want, drink, whatever they want to do. No violence will happen inside Makkah. Except with believers. It's the only exception. You'll find people that say, we believe in freedom of speech. We believe in freedom of expression. These are our values. We hold on to them for life. We have the right to protest, the right to declare, the right to debate, freedom of religion. Until it costs a little bit too much politically. It costs a little bit, it's looking bad for PR. Now we need to, no, we believe in it, but there's some amendments that need to be made here. So you see why this is important. They'll make lots of promises, but they have nothing that they truly believe in. Nothing. We'll see there is something they truly believe in is coming. Allah will tell us Himself where their religion is, what their religion is. But that's at the end. He says, فَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ مَهِينٍ. He doesn't stop there. So they come to you, they make you all these promises. They come to you with no true conviction of their own, just to get you from your, they want you to be like themselves. They don't really believe in anything. They would love the same for you. They want to compromise and negotiate and change sides. You could be somebody who's a hardcore Republican, but the private meetings are happening with the Democrats and they're making deals. You could be a hardcore Democrat, in the back you're making deals with the Republicans. It's all good. You know, you're speaking about the best interest of the public, and in the back you're just speaking to the lobbyists and making sajda to them. Right? That's the reality. So they're hoping that they think you're just like them, a crook like them. So they think you'll negotiate, you'll play ball like they play ball. But Allah even told His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the reason you can never work with these people, you can never play this game, is because before all of this, what did Allah say about His Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam in Surah Al-Qalam? He said, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. You are committed to a great character. You don't compromise. You have principles. You don't budge. Okay, so this is how they are with you when they speak to you. What do they do behind your back after they're done making promises to you and offering you safety? They leave Hammaz. Now they start spreading slander against you, attacks against you. Hams in Arabic is actually when the arrow pierces the skin and gets inside and gets hooked inside. And when you're trying to pull the arrow out, it rips the skin. The idea of many of you know the surah, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ, right? And the hamazat is shaitan, for example. A hamiz is someone, or a hammaz is someone who knows exactly what kind of attack to make behind someone's back that will have an effect. So what did they do in the case of the Prophet ﷺ? Somebody likes the messenger, even though before the messenger ﷺ declared risala, before he declared he's a messenger, for 40 years he was a citizen of Makkah. A good citizen of Makkah. So people know him in business, people know him in family, people know him as a friend. That's how they know him. Now you want to make people think bad of him. It's not going to work. The insane thing didn't work. Right? That accusation didn't work. The possessed by jinn accusation didn't work. So you now come, because he's not compromising, you need to give him a bad reputation in Makkah. So you go to somebody and say, Muhammad is a real problem. They don't say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we do. He's a real problem. Why is he a problem? He's such a good man. What do you mean he's a problem? This guy, the one you're talking to, he believes in family values, So you go to him and say, you know what Muhammad's problem is? He's breaking families. What? Muhammad's breaking families? Yeah. Father is turning against son. Husband is turning against wife. Wife against husband. People are rebelling in their families. He's destroying families. You don't know that? He's a real threat to family values. Oh, that's not good. So he knows exactly what to say to this guy. He goes to somebody else who's a capitalist. Muhammad is really bad for business. And the guy's like, what do you mean bad for business? Well, let me tell you, if we keep doing this, then it's going to cost us a lot of money in Mecca over here. We're going to lose a lot of tourist money. All these idols, all the tribes that come here for their idols, they're not going to come no more. We're going to run out of business. Some people are concerned with family, some with security, some with money. And this guy knows who to attack with what. How to dismantle the reputation of the Prophet ﷺ. Allah says, don't be influenced by their propaganda campaign. فَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ هَمَّازٍ مَشَّاءٍ بِنَمِيمٍ. They walk around They go around in circles and they do namima. And namim in Arabic comes from nam or nimma. Nimma in Arabic is actually a very light breeze. If you're walking by a field that has flowers and you barely smell the flowers, that's called nimma in Arabic. And something that's very delicate is also called namma. That's why in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, Rasulullah said, "La tumathilu nammat Allah." Talking about the animals, Allah says, don't make an example out of the namma of Allah, meaning animals are delicate, treat them in a delicate way. So the idea of namim is he goes around and just drops little subtle things that stirs things up, you know? You might have friends like that, or you might have people in the office like that. They don't start the problem directly. They just drop a line and let the fire begin and they walk away. That's the namim. And he's starting a little spark over here, then a spark over there, then a spark over there. Let me meet this senator. Let me go at this restaurant and wait for this politician. Oh, what are you doing here? Oh, funny to meet you. He was waiting all this time just to drop a line. And like it's not even going to be noticed by anybody. It's covert propaganda, right? So there's Hamas, open attacks, like the arrow that pierces, and then there's Masha' bin Namim walking around making these secret suggestions to stir the crowd up, stir different groups up. Masha' bin Namim, this is a pretty elaborate propaganda scheme. Whoever this is pretty good at what they do. And if the Rasul ﷺ is so straightforward and he's just making da'wah, and behind his back, there's an entire network of people trying to undo what he does, he should be worried. And Allah says, "La tuti', don't worry about it." Let me just tell you the games they play. فَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ مَهِينٍ هَمَّازٍ مَشَّاءٍ بِنَمِيمٍ. And let me tell you their reality. مَنَّاعٍ لِلْخَيْرِ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ. They talk about, we want what's best for the country. We want to protect our people. We want to protect our national interest. Allah says these people are the ones that will stop any good from ever happening. مَنَّاعٍ لِلْخَيْرِ. And they will break any law that they can. Mu'tad. And they're constantly in sin. They're constantly doing something wrong. These are the worst kinds of people. مَنَّاعٍ لِلْخَيْرِ مُعْتَدٍ أَثِيمٍ. Together, what it does, because time's run out, all it does is it describes these people have no one else's interest at heart. They want to prevent good from happening. They want to prevent any khair from spreading. And then after all of that, Allah says, عُتُلٍ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ زَنِيمٍ. Utla in Arabic is a piece of land that's cut out or dug out. If you dig a hole in your backyard, you're trying to make a swimming pool or something, and there's a pile of dirt separate from that. Now that dirt has been separated from the rest of the soil, that's a utla. A person who's utul is he sees himself separate from everybody else. Everybody else is insects. Everybody else is cattle. Everybody else is just numbers and statistics. The people that matter is me and my circle over here. These are the people that matter. Everybody else can, whatever happens with them, happens with them. And at the end, Allah gives him a huge insult. بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ زَنِيمٍ. The last insult Allah gives him is that this person, on top of all of that, is also zanim. Zanam in Arabic, they used to say about someone who claims that they are from a tribe, but they're actually not legitimately from the tribe. They were born of illegitimate, like outside of marriage. So they would call them zanim. And Allah is saying that, and يعني ادعى أنه من قوم وليس منهم. هذا هو الزنيم, right? So he claims that he's from a people, but he's not really from them. Allah is using this word to describe this person has no loyalties, not even to his country, not even to his tribe, not even to his family. He's got loyalties to no one but himself. He's the ultimate sleazy politician. Really good with his speech, really good with his propaganda, really subtle with his tactics, really good at stopping any good from spreading, and extremely disloyal to everyone except looking out for number one. عُتُلٍ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ زَنِيمٍ. But how does he, what is at the end of it? Why does he have influence then? If it's such a terrible human being, why does such a terrible human being have influence? أَنْ كَانَ ذَا مَالٍ وَبَنِينَ. He's got money, he's got people. That's it. That's their ideology. Money and Baneen in the end. Back in the day, Baneen was your backup. Baneen was your support. Baneen in the tribal sense was your army. You see, like the children of, in the ancient world, the children of Yaqub alayhi salam called themselves Usba, yeah? Nahnu Usba, because they're the army of the house. They're the security of the house. The modern version of Baneen is not just you have sons. The modern version of Baneen is you have the military might. You have the nukes, you have the tanks, you have the the dome. These are your baneen. And then you have the funding, mal, and kana dha malin wa baneen. So might is right, money is right. Where the money is where the truth lies. This is Allah's analysis of the kind of person the Prophet ﷺ will have to deal with. But the wisdom of the Quran is Allah did not say, look out for Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, look out for Walid ibn Mughira. No. Look out for kulla hallafin mahin. Any one of them who does this. And by these qualities in the opening of Surah Al-Qalam, Allah prepared the Muslims for the kind of sleazy politicians all over the world and the sleazebags that are going to come and offer their loyalties, but in the end they have no loyalties but to wealth. They have no religion but money and power. No other religion. Don't fall into that influence. Stand your ground. Stand your ground. And this is a message Allah gave the Messenger ﷺ in the very opening. It's shocking. The last thing I'll share with you, it's shocking. The Quran hasn't even spread across Makkah yet. This is arguably maybe within the first 5 revelations that were given to Rasulullah ﷺ, Surah Al-Qalam is one of them. One of the earliest revelations. But it sounds like things have already intensified. It sounds like he's already in ideological war. But no, this is preparation. This is Rasulullah ﷺ being prepared. And this is even the enemy being put on notice. You think the things you go behind closed doors and Allah doesn't know? Allah knows and He will let His messenger know. Nothing is behind closed doors. You have been exposed. These people, they do their best to cover their tracks. They're masters at that. That's why they do hilf. The one who makes a lot of oaths, the one who makes a lot of promises, their entire campaign is to cover their tracks, to not let their hands be the ones that have blood on them. Get somebody else to do the dirty work. That's why they're doing namima. And what did Allah do? Allah pointed it right back at them. He cut through all of that fat, all of the propaganda, all of the smoke screens behind which they hide, and came right at them. This is the power of Allah's book, that it exposes us to the enemy, the trickery of shaitan and shaitan's armies in a way that only Allah could have exposed. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us the commitment to the truth, and may Allah Azza wa Jal not allow us ever to become those in our lives and as a community and as an ummah to fall into the trap of the people that have been outlined here. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim.